He spent our retirement savings behind my back. The silver necklace I gave him last Christmas was lying face down under the bed, covered in dust. On the kitchen table, a receipt printed with the name of a city I had never been to. My neck tightened like someone had cinched a rope behind me. Heat crawled up from my spine to my ears, as if the air had turned too heavy to breathe. I sat still, staring at the empty chair across from me, as if it had once held everything I thought was real. There was nothing left but a silence shaped like me. Do you know who your retirement money is really supporting? Her name was Loretta James, 68 years old, retired after 34 years of service as a school secretary at a rural elementary school in Washington County, Iowa. She had neat handwriting, a quiet laugh, and hands that always smelled faintly of lavender soap. Her husband, Douglas James, was 72. He had once worked construction in his younger years, but retired early after a knee surgery slowed him down. He wore the same navy baseball cap every morning and kept his wallet in his front pocket, said it was better for his back. They had no debts, no big expenses, just a modest life in a 2-bedroom home on the edge of Brighton, a small house with a wooden porch, a few chipped flower pots, and a weathered flag fluttering above the mailbox. For years, their routine was simple. Douglas paid the bills. Loretta handled the cooking, laundry, and the garden. When she retired, she started giving him her monthly pension check. He said, "It's easier if one of us manages it. I've got the system down." And she trusted him. At first, there were no signs. Douglas left the house early most mornings. He told Loretta he liked walking the trail behind the park, said it helped his knees stay loose. Some days he came back with coffee from the gas station or a new bulb for the porch light. Then, little things started to shift. He became more protective of his phone, set a passcode, kept it in his pocket even in the bathroom. When Loretta asked if he was expecting someone, he laughed and said, "Just avoiding spam calls." He used to toss mail onto the kitchen table, but now he opened it in the garage. One afternoon, she asked if they could finally buy that electric recliner she had seen on sale. Her back had started aching more at night. He hesitated, then said, "We need to hold off a little." Some unexpected things came up. She didn't ask what those things were. She just nodded. Loretta had always kept important papers in a small oak file cabinet in the guest bedroom. That morning, Douglas had gone out early, said he was meeting someone about a plumbing issue. She was alone. The sun poured through the blinds. The house was silent except for the soft ticking of the wall clock. She opened the drawer to find her Medicare card. Inside the folder marked Utilities, she saw something unusual, an unmarked envelope, slightly torn at the edge. It was stuffed with papers, bank statements, transactions, pages and pages of activity from a checking account she didn't recognize. The account had Douglas's name on it, but none of their usual activity. At first, she didn't understand. Then the numbers began to form patterns. Each month, the exact amount of her pension was deposited. Then came charges she couldn't place rent for an apartment in Des Moines, a car insurance policy for a vehicle she didn't know they owned, monthly payments to a cosmetics store, salon visits, a recurring transfer labeled C, Lang, month after month. For 3 years, what unfolded wasn't just infidelity, it was a quiet, calculated siphoning of her retirement savings. A family betrayal story wrapped in routine, and to the court, she would soon learn. She was effectively a disinherited spouse still legally married, yet financially excluded. I didn't scream. I didn't faint. I remember looking at the print so closely my eyes started to blur. I blinked and saw the same name again, Cynthia Lang, a stranger, paid, quietly, every month with my retirement. My throat felt like I had swallowed a dry stone. I pressed my hand against my chest, but I couldn't feel my heartbeat. I walked to the kitchen to pour a glass of water. I turned on the tap and let it run, but forgot to place the glass under it. The water overflowed into the sink, splashing on my sleeve. I didn't move. I just stood there, with the faucet running, holding the glass in midair like a statue. That evening, Douglas came home with a half-used roll of duct tape and a story about the hardware store being out of filters. He kissed her on the cheek. She didn't lean in. She placed the envelope on the table in front of him. Neat, aligned with the edge, not a word. He looked at it, then at her, then walked into the other room. He didn't return. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, then at the door he used to close with a soft click. There was no click tonight, only the creak of a man sleeping in the room down the hall in the house I paid for. Under the roof I thought we built together. I opened the fridge. The tea pitcher was half full. I didn't pour a glass. I just stood there, letting the cold air hit my knees. The first thing I said came the next morning, sometime around 6 hours and 20 minutes after I found the envelope. It wasn't a question. It wasn't anger. It was a whisper, soft, cracked, like a note from an old record. So this is what trust buys. Many women mistake shared life for shared control. But in a marriage, love without financial clarity becomes a silent risk. Loretta handed over her entire retirement savings every month, not because she was careless, but because she believed that loyalty meant never asking. It didn't. It meant she never saw what was slowly being taken from her. In too many stories like hers, the truth arrives too late and always costs more than money. He took everything, not with violence, but with silence, with routine, with the steady rhythm of bills paid and trust unspoken. Douglas made repeated, unilateral financial decisions. He rerouted her pension, maintained a hidden bank account, and used the money to support another woman, all without Loretta's consent. That was not just infidelity. It was exploitation. It was a warning about what can happen when money and marriage are never talked about, only assumed. But Loretta also stayed silent. She never checked an account, never asked to review a statement. She accepted the illusion of order without verifying the structure underneath. That silence gave him room to lie, room to redirect, room to disappear behind the numbers. When she finally acted, she did not scream. She called a family law attorney in Iowa, one who specialized in gray divorce and elder financial exploitation. Together, they reviewed every transaction, tracing 3 full years of hidden spending in retirement. Her pension had been treated as disposable income for someone else, and that established grounds for dissipation of marital assets. Under Iowa's equitable distribution law, even assets already spent can be accounted for in court if they were depleted for non-marital purposes. The attorney filed for divorce. In court, Loretta's legal team presented a clear financial pattern: concealed accounts, luxury spending, monthly transfers to another woman. It wasn't just irresponsible, it was intentional. The judge agreed. Although the pension money could not be retrieved, Loretta was awarded the house, the remaining shared savings, and a portion of Douglas's retirement income through a qualified domestic relations order. This meant she would receive a legal share of his future benefits, no permission needed. In parallel, her attorney helped her contact the Social Security Administration. They discovered that Douglas had previously acted as her representative payee for supplemental benefits without full disclosure. That role was revoked. Her payments were reinstated directly to her, and the misuse was formally flagged. The final step was quiet but powerful. Loretta opened a checking account in her own name. She sat with a financial advisor who explained every step slowly, clearly, with a pen and yellow notepad. She learned to read a statement, set up alerts, sign in securely. And for the first time in decades, the money was hers and only hers on paper, in law, and in truth. Loretta didn't stay in the house after the divorce. The walls felt too close, the floorboards too familiar. She packed over the course of 3 days, folding each sweater with care. She boxed up her sewing kit, her collection of Christmas cards, and a stack of letters from her daughter. The photo albums went in first. The framed wedding portrait stayed behind. She moved into a small apartment above the public library in Mount Pleasant. 1 flight of stairs, no garden, but a window that faced east and caught the morning sun. The first morning, she sat at the edge of her narrow bed, listening to birds she didn't recognize. She made tea, opened the window, and let the light fall across the floor without asking it for permission. That same week, she saw a flyer for a free financial literacy group hosted every second Friday at the library. At first, she passed it by, but something tugged. The next time, she signed up. She walked in slowly, notebook in hand, wearing her lavender gloves even though it was warm. The room was quiet, mostly women, some younger, many older. The speaker explained how to read a bank statement, how to set a spending alert, how to create a simple budget. Loretta didn't understand every word, but she wrote down everyone. Afterward, she stayed to ask a question, and then another. The woman leading the session smiled and said, "Come back next week. We'll go over it again." She did, and the week after, and the week after that. Loretta found her rhythm. She joined a small circle that met on Saturdays, not a support group in the traditional sense, but a gathering of women who were rebuilding. They didn't talk much about pain. They talked about planning, about the cost of groceries, about which bank was more patient at the counter. They brought banana bread, shared notes on wills, explained the difference between joint accounts and beneficiary designations. They weren't afraid to say, "I didn't know." They weren't embarrassed to admit what had been taken. One woman, nearly 80, said softly one morning, "It's never too late to open a door with your own key." That sentence stayed with Loretta. She printed it, taped it above her small kitchen table. One morning, while watering her new potted fern, a plant given by the library group, she smiled. Not because everything was fixed, not because it didn't hurt, but because the sunlight fell into the room. And for the first time in years, she knew exactly how much money she had in the bank, and exactly whose name it was under, her own. She had protected what was left of her retirement savings and reclaimed the right to live by her own terms. Sometimes, healing is not about becoming stronger. It's about becoming clearer, like finally wiping the fog off a mirror and seeing the shape of your own life again. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it hums quietly behind a locked door, one that only you can open. If you've spent your life trusting someone else with the money, ask for the statement today. If your name isn't on the account schedule, the appointment, if you feel a strange silence around the bills, speak into it. Even if your voice shakes, open a folder, check a password, call the bank and ask to see the last 6 months. Do it with your daughter, your neighbor, or alone with a pen and a sheet of paper. And if this story sounds even a little bit like yours, leave a comment, say something, say you're here, because someone else is out there, reading in the dark, wondering if they're the only one. They're not, and now, neither are you.